So if similar to myself, you are an avid boxing YouTube viewer, you would see that any instance that a professional or so-called pundit is being interviewed and asked a question regarding Anthony Joshua, who, by the way, is the most criticized and scrutinized boxer of our generation by a margin, a large margin, you'll notice that the narrative that is currently being pushed, perhaps this is a promotional campaign that is helping his redevelopment, but the words Anthony Joshua is back is constantly being used. AJ is back. Is the AJ of old back? And I think it's a little bit harsh to dictate whether someone has returned to his old ways when he has very much clearly shown that he is not just redeveloping the existing skill set which he has, but showcasing new ability. And before anyone gets on my case about being an AJ fanboy, I implore you to reconsider this, as that is not the case whatsoever. I am just here to make an argument to debate whether people are directly hating on AJ because of themselves being a hater of the individual, or whether they are blinded by being a fanboy of the individual. Or perhaps you fit into a third category, which is you just like boxing, therefore you watch Anthony Joshua because he is a boxer. Now, to go into the category of defining a hater, I do believe that there is various subcategories of this class, but we're not going to go into that in this video. What I do want to define is what is the criteria of being a hater, because simply not liking someone isn't enough to say that you are a hater, although that does make a very solid case for that argument. What I think makes a hater of an individual such as Anthony Joshua is to not actually take into consideration what he has achieved. Take into account recent events of his most recent run since losing to Alexander Usyk, who, by the way, deserves credit on its very own merit. But know that he has beaten and gone the distance with little-known American boxer Jermaine Franklin. He has knocked out Robert Helenius in the 7th round. He has fought Otto Warland, who was this tricky southpaw prior to AJ dispatching of him with relative ease, and now moved on to fight Francis Ngannou. And picking the most recent two, just for example's sake, since they are a comparable opponent to the current lineal heavyweight champion of the world, the hater has made excuses for AJ's ability of beating Otto Warland by claiming that he has already sparred numerous rounds with him and that he is nothing so special. And then we have Francis Ngannou, who is just an MMA fighter. This is the kind of argument that's being made for the fight with Francis Ngannou recently. Although the same wasn't being made when Francis Ngannou had bust down Tyson Fury. AJ dispatching and essentially decapitating while keeping his head attached to Francis Ngannou was not enough to make any kind of AJ hater consider the fact that AJ put that ability together to be able to do that to Francis Ngannou, something which Tyson Fury, by the way, wasn't capable of doing, regardless of the excuses made for him being out of shape. Jermaine Franklin, on his first comeback fight, going the 12 distance, was a rebuilding fight to an unknown entity who is arguably undefeated at the time because he had gone toe-to-toe with Dillian Whyte on UK soil, which many believe that Dillian Whyte was lucky and fortunate to get away with the win. So with that said, the argument that Jermaine Franklin was kind of a whatever character is not only discrediting Jermaine Franklin's capabilities, but also the fact that Anthony Joshua had proven to go a full 12 round regardless of how timid he looked on the trigger. He managed to do that post coming back from a loss, something which many boxers don't attempt to do. They usually, i.e. Joe Joyce, for instance, of recent example, go with a much easier, more journeyman-esque level of opponent. Joe Joyce just went and had a fight with Cash Ali, but the same energy isn't presented to Joe Joyce because perhaps the expectation of what Anthony Joshua should be capable of doing is vastly different. And then we got the argument with Robert Helenius, who again is perhaps you can say a journeyman level at this stage, and Anthony Joshua he looked very gun shy against him, which again could be the case, but what they are leaving out is the context that Robert Helenius was a late replacement, a 3-day late replacement. And I know this very closely because I went to that fight and I paid to go for Dillian Whyte to be the opponent. but it ended up being Robert Helenius. So knowing Anthony Joshua's track record of when late replacements have occurred, i.e. Carlos Takam, who almost bust his nose because he wasn't training for that kind of opponent, Andy Ruiz, we all know that speaks for itself. Late replacement wasn't capable of keeping up with that style of opponent because that's not what he was training for. Ended up getting caught and the rest writes itself. And now once more, he finds himself in a similar position against a completely different style to what he would have been training towards in Dillian Whyte. So naturally, under the spotlight, you're going to have some kind of psychological demons. And I believe this gets overlooked by the AJ hater. They just say, oh, he was gun shy, he wasn't capable of doing anything. Even though Anthony Joshua, with everything considered, still managed to knock him out. And side note on that, let's not disregard the fact that Robert Helenius got popped on some kind of performance enhancement drugs. Whether it was intentional or not, that occurred almost immediately after Anthony Joshua had won the fight. So he technically beat someone who was also juiced up. Now, I say all of that to say, for me, this makes sense in the trajectory a boxer should be going when they are trying to rebuild not only their status in the eyes of the public, but their own confidence and their own abilities. And Anthony Joshua has shown to be a very driven individual. He's going to put boxing before his own personal life. He's committed. And you can see that he has dedicated himself to the game, which is something a lot of boxers do not do regardless of the outcome of their fights. So therefore, for me, this is not necessarily an Anthony Joshua 3.0 or Anthony Joshua coming back to his old ways. I don't think he ever left his old ways. You're going to have some kind of psychological damage after taking a loss, especially in the eyes of millions of viewers, where every time you open your phone or walk out in public, if that is something he's able to do, you are scrutinized. You read any kind of headline, regardless of how much they claim that they avoid seeing any kind of word around the street because, you know, I'm just super focused on my, you are going to see something slip through the cracks to say that, oh, Anthony Joshua sucked, oh, he wasn't able to do this. And that kind of level of scrutinization and criticism in a large scale, the average person such as myself or you watching this is not capable of taking, should deserve some kind of credit. I mean, the man should actually get a medal awarded for the psychological torment that he would have had to survive throughout the case. But you know what? I'm not trying to kiss his ass. He makes millions and millions of pounds in the eyes of the public as well. So it can't all be that bad. You got the best of the best treatment to recover from things like that. So with that said, I believe, let's not get carried away with the AJ's back. He never really went. He showed signs of being a little bit gun shy, but boxers in the past would not jump into an immediate rematch. Twice, that is to say. Andy Ruiz, he had that awful knockout, and then he came back and dispatched of him in a very mundane, boring fight. People also bypassed the fact that he went straight into his mandatory with Krubat Prulev and won that fight by knockout. It's almost like that fight didn't happen, actually. When people talk about Anthony Joshua's career, they talk about AJ being knocked out by Andy Ruiz and then immediately time skipping to when he loses to Alexander Usyk. So it's very interesting way of thought when I think of things like that. I'm trying to be extremely unbiased. Do not consider me a fanboy. I'm just putting the evidence that is there right in front of you to make a decision for yourself. And I would love to have a discussion down in the comment section below. So please be sure to share your opinion, whether it's good or bad. And if you enjoyed the content, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and a like. I used to run this YouTube channel and I kind of went on hiatus for 2 years, but I'm back to make more content because I enjoyed the communication I had with the boxing fans on this. So subscribe for more if you would like to as well. And I will see you on the next video. If I've missed anything out, I'm happy to make a follow-up video. Catch you on the next one.